Picture this. You're in your 30s or 40s. Your phone still works. The battery drains a little faster. The screen has a small crack, but nothing is actually broken. You tell yourself you will upgrade eventually, just not today. At the time, that belief feels reasonable. A newer phone feels like efficiency. Better tools should make life smoother. It feels like a clean, responsible decision, not indulgence. Fast forward a few days, you did upgrade. The phone is faster. It looks better. But instead of relief, something feels unsettled. You are already spending more than you planned, and the pressure did not go away. If this feels familiar, you are not careless with money. You are not weak. The problem is not the purchase itself. The problem is what quietly followed it. There is a psychological pattern at work here that almost no one explains clearly. Once you see it, a lot of confusing spending behavior suddenly makes sense. My name is Alex, and today we are going to break this down calmly and logically. By the end of this video, you will understand why certain purchases never stay isolated and how to stop the chain reaction before it starts. If you do not catch this early, earning more money does not fix it. The same pressure simply follows you to every new income level. If this already feels uncomfortably accurate, tap the like button so this kind of clear financial thinking reaches more people. The hidden pattern behind reasonable spending. Most unnecessary spending does not begin with impulse or carelessness. It begins with a decision that feels reasonable, a purchase that fits neatly into your story about being practical, efficient, or simply keeping up with life. That is why it slips past your internal defenses. It does not feel reckless. It feels justified. When people think about money mistakes, they imagine emotional shopping or lack of control. But this pattern works differently. You look at one item, you look at the price, and you ask a narrow question: can I afford this? If the answer is yes, the decision feels complete. What rarely gets examined is what that purchase quietly changes. Every object you own exists in relation to other objects. Your clothes relate to your car. Your phone relates to your desk. Your furniture relates to your space. When one piece suddenly moves up in quality or status, it resets expectations across the system. This creates psychological tension, not immediate financial stress. Things that felt fine last week begin to feel slightly wrong, not broken, just mismatched. And the mind naturally looks for ways to restore consistency. Spending accelerates not because discipline failed, but because the baseline moved. The rule changed without being announced. And if you do not notice that shift, the costs keep adding up quietly. The origin of the pattern, Denis Diderot's life shift. To understand how this pattern works, it helps to see it in its purest form. In the mid-1700s, Denis Diderot was a respected philosopher and writer in France. He was well known, but not wealthy. His life was simple. His furniture was old. His clothes were worn. Nothing matched particularly well, but everything fit together. And importantly, he was content. Then something unexpected happened. Catherine the Great of Russia admired Diderot's work and learned that he was struggling financially. She offered to buy his personal library for a large sum of money, while allowing him to keep the books. Overnight, Diderot's financial reality changed. This sudden wealth did not arrive with guidance or boundaries. It simply appeared. And like most people would, Diderot decided to treat himself. He purchased a beautiful scarlet dressing gown, a luxury item far superior to anything else he owned. That single purchase did more than add comfort. It introduced a new standard into his life. For the first time, one object no longer belonged to the world around it. And that quiet mismatch set everything else in motion. The anchor item that started the collapse. When Diderot brought the scarlet dressing gown into his home, it changed more than his appearance. The robe was elegant, refined, and clearly out of place in a room filled with worn furniture and faded rugs. At first, the feeling was pride. He felt elevated. He felt successful. The object carried identity. But the moment he sat down to work, the contrast became impossible to ignore. The desk he had used for years, functional and familiar, now looked rough and undignified next to the robe. It had not changed. His perception had. The robe became the reference point, and everything else was judged against it. So Diderot replaced the desk. The new desk solved the discomfort for a moment. But that relief did not last. The desk made the rug look cheap. The rug made the curtains look tired. The curtains made the chair feel unworthy of the room. Each replacement fixed one inconsistency while exposing another. This is what makes the anchor item dangerous. It does not demand money directly. It demands alignment. Once a new standard is introduced, everything below it starts to feel wrong. Diderot did not chase luxury for pleasure. He chased coherence. And that pursuit quietly dismantled his finances. The spiral of forced upgrades. After the desk was replaced, the pattern accelerated. Each new purchase solved a problem created by the last one, but only briefly. The upgraded desk made the old rug look worn. The new rug made the curtains feel cheap. The curtains made the chair seem unfit for the room. One by one, objects that had served Diderot well for years were reclassified as unacceptable. None of these items were broken. None had failed in their function. They failed only in comparison. The environment was slowly rebuilt, not out of excess or greed, but out of a desire for harmony. Every replacement felt necessary. Every purchase felt justified in isolation. What is important to notice is that the spending did not feel reckless. It felt corrective. Each decision was framed as fixing a mismatch, restoring balance, or finishing what had already been started. The logic was sound at each step. The outcome was not. Over time, Diderot systematically replaced nearly everything he owned, and when the room finally matched the quality of the robe, the money was gone. He had not lost control. He had followed a sequence that felt rational from the inside. The spiral was not driven by desire for more, but by discomfort with inconsistency. Defining the mechanism, the Diderot Effect. What happened to Diderot was not bad luck or poor judgment. It was a predictable psychological mechanism. Today, it is known as the Diderot Effect. The idea is simple. When a new possession enters your life, it does not arrive alone. It brings expectations with it. Humans are wired to seek consistency between their identity and their environment. When one object signals a higher standard, everything around it is quietly reevaluated. Items that once felt neutral now feel inadequate. Not because they changed, but because the reference point did. This is why the effect is so powerful. It does not feel like craving. It feels like correction. You are not chasing pleasure. You are removing discomfort. And because discomfort feels rational, the spending feels justified. The mistake is thinking ownership is one-directional. We assume that once we buy something, it serves us. In reality, some possessions reverse that relationship. They begin to dictate behavior, attention, and future spending. The object becomes the rule set. The Diderot effect explains why spending often accelerates after upgrades, raises, or windfalls. It is not that people suddenly lose discipline. It is that the system they live in quietly changed. Without noticing that shift, it is easy to become a caretaker of things rather than a user of them. Why the effect is stronger in the modern world. The Diderot effect existed centuries ago, but it is far more powerful today. Modern marketing is built to trigger it intentionally. Products are no longer sold as isolated tools. They are sold as part of a lifestyle, a look, or an identity that promises completeness. When you buy something now, you are rarely shown the item alone. You see it surrounded by matching accessories, clean spaces, and people who already live at a higher baseline. That image becomes the implied standard. The product is not just an object. It is an invitation to upgrade the environment around it. Technology amplifies this pressure. Algorithms learn what you buy and immediately suggest what should come next. Not because you asked, but because the system predicts the inconsistency you're about to feel. The moment you upgrade one piece, the market is ready to offer solutions for everything else that now looks out of place. This is why the effect feels faster and more expensive today. The time between purchases shrinks. The number of available upgrades multiplies. And because the suggestions feel relevant, it does not register as manipulation. It feels helpful. The result is a spending pattern that feels controlled, but compounds quickly. The system is not designed to ask whether you are done. It is designed to keep restoring a moving standard. Modern identity spirals in everyday life. Once you see the pattern, it becomes easy to spot in ordinary situations. Take fitness as an example. Someone decides to get in shape and buys a high-quality exercise bike. The purchase feels responsible. Health is a good reason to spend money. But the bike introduces a new identity into the home. Suddenly, old workout clothes feel wrong. They still function, but they do not match the image associated with the bike. New shoes feel necessary, better clothing follows. Then the space around the bike feels messy, so the room gets upgraded. What started as one purchase turns into an identity package. The same thing happens with visible status items like cars. A modest car allows for modest expectations. A higher-end car quietly raises them. Clothing, restaurants, travel, and even social behavior begin to adjust to match the new signal. None of these changes are forced, they feel natural. That is what makes them dangerous. The object becomes an anchor. It sets a new baseline for how life should look. Anything below that baseline creates friction. Spending becomes a way to reduce that friction, not to seek luxury. The identity spiral feels like progress, but it often pulls cash forward faster than income can support. The math most people never calculate. Most people think they are being careful because they look at prices. They check the number on the tag and decide whether it fits their budget. But that number is rarely the real cost. The real cost is what the item sets in motion. A better way to think is system cost, not item cost. One upgrade rarely stands alone. It creates pressure for surrounding upgrades, and those costs are usually ignored at the decision point. Home renovation is a clear example. Someone budgets for new kitchen cabinets. The cabinets are installed and look great. Immediately, the old refrigerator looks out of place. It still works, but visually it clashes. A new fridge solves that problem. Then the floor looks dated. Then the living room feels unfinished because the space is open. Each step feels logical. Each step feels necessary. The final bill is never the original number. It is often 2 or 3 times higher. Not because of poor planning, but because the planning stopped too early. This is where spending becomes dangerous. The dissatisfaction is created by the upgrade itself. Before the first change, nothing felt wrong. The moment the anchor item arrives, everything else is reevaluated. If you do not calculate the full chain reaction, the math will surprise you later. Structural defenses against the spiral. The goal is not to avoid buying nice things. That is unrealistic. The goal is to stop one decision from quietly rewriting the rules of your entire system. To do that, you need structure, not restraint. The first defense is prediction. Before buying any upgrade, pause and ask what else this item will demand. Not emotionally, but practically. Write down the full system cost. If the number makes you uncomfortable, the item is not affordable yet, even if the price tag says otherwise. The second defense is limiting accumulation. When a new item enters your life, something old should leave. This keeps the size of the system stable and prevents endless matching. It forces you to remain a user of objects, not a curator of them. The third defense is strategic downgrading. Keep your most visible anchor items modest. A simple car, basic watch, or functional furniture lowers expectations everywhere else. When your baseline is humble, you gain freedom. There is no pressure to upgrade the rest of your life to keep a story consistent. These defenses work because they attack the mechanism, not the symptom. When you control the baseline, spending slows naturally. You keep margin, flexibility, and ownership of your life, instead of maintaining a system that quietly drains it. Key takeaway: unnecessary spending is rarely about temptation or lack of discipline. It is usually the result of a system quietly changing underneath you. One upgrade introduces a new standard, and that standard begins to judge everything else you own. The discomfort that follows feels logical, so the spending feels justified. The danger is not the item itself. It is failing to notice that the baseline moved. When you miss that moment, costs compound without permission. You are no longer choosing purchases. You are responding to pressure created by earlier decisions. Financial control does not come from saying no to everything. It comes from understanding how systems behave. When you calculate full system costs, cap accumulation, and keep visible anchor items modest, spending slows naturally. No willpower required. Real wealth is not built by upgrading faster. It is built by protecting margin. The less your identity depends on objects, the less those objects get to decide how your money behaves.